It's election season now in the United States. Kamala Harris, the current vice president, is the Democratic nominee for president, and she's taking on a former president, Donald Trump, who is the Republican nominee. It's been a polarized election campaign, with former President Trump surviving 2 assassination attempts. The rhetoric has been acrimonious at times, to put it mildly, and while Harris leads the polls, it's difficult to predict who will win. This election campaign has also coincided with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the United States, his 8th since he became Prime Minister in 2014. And there was a different touch to this visit, with the current and outgoing President Joe Biden inviting him to his home state of Delaware. Prime Minister Modi landed in Philadelphia and made his way to Wilmington in Delaware, where he met Biden at his residence. The gesture on the part of Biden appeared to affirm the close relationship between India and the United States, and indeed the camaraderie between him and Prime Minister Modi. Much was discussed between the two, including an arrangement to set up a semiconductor fabrication plant at a time when there has been much global dependence on China and Taiwan in this regard. This was very much consistent with the objective of both countries to diversify their supply chains. The two countries also discussed their defense partnership, but a key takeaway was also working towards unlocking $1 billion in multilateral financing to support clean energy projects. All in all, the bilateral interaction represented a deepening and strengthening of existing ties that have grown considerably closer under Prime Minister Modi's tenure.
आज का भारत दुनिया में एक नए कैटलिक एजेंट की तरह उभर रहा है और इसका प्रभाव हर सेक्टर में दिखेगा। ग्लोबल ग्रोथ के प्रोसेस को तेज करने के लिए भारत का रोल अहम होगा। ग्लोबल पीस के प्रोसेस को तेज करने के लिए भारत का रोल अहम होगा। ग्लोबल क्लाइमेट एक्शन को स्पीड अप करने में भारत का रोल अहम होगा। ग्लोबल स्किल गैप को दूर करने में भारत का रोल अहम होगा। ग्लोबल इनोवेशंस को नई दिशा देने में भारत का रोल अहम होगा। ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन में स्टेबिलिटी के लिए भारत का भूमिका अहम होगा। साथियों, भारत के लिए शक्ति और सामर्थ्य का अर्थ है, भारत के लिए शक्ति और सामर्थ्य का अर्थ है ज्ञानाय, दानाय, च रक्षणाय। यानी नॉलेज इज फॉर शेयरिंग, वेल्थ इज फॉर कैरिंग, पावर इज फॉर प्रोटेक्टिंग। इसलिए भारत की प्राथमिकता दुनिया में अपना दबाव बढ़ाने की नहीं, अपना प्रभाव बढ़ाने की है। हम आग की तरह जलाने वाले नहीं, हम सूरज के किरण की तरह रोशनी देने वाले लोग हैं। हम विश्व पर अपना दबदबा नहीं चाहते, हम विश्व की समृद्धि में अपना सहयोग बढ़ाना चाहते हैं।
The Prime Minister's foreign policy outreach has been a proactive one, and this visit to the United States was preceded by visits to Poland as well as Ukraine, to Austria and to Singapore and Brunei. India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar had visited 10 countries in the build-up to this visit in a space of 3 months, and India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval had also met President Vladimir Putin of Russia. In the joint statement between India and the United States, the efforts on the part of India to achieve peace in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine was also acknowledged.
So what are you thinking? Is it going to be a strategy based on Kamala Harris winning these elections, or is it going to be a strategy based on what Donald Trump will do if he wins these elections? And are these two different things, especially where India is concerned?
The consequences for U.S.-India relations, I think, are, as you know, the relationship is good, healthy, strategic, no matter who wins. There's bipartisan support in America for strong ties with India. But I think there is one candidate that's better for India-U.S. relations than the other.
And which one is that?
I believe it's Harris, and it's not a close call. I believe Kamala Harris is going to be a stable, consistent voice for U.S.-India relations. Will continue the trade and deepening trade, will negotiate tough with India. India is a tough negotiator on trade and penetration of their market. I think she also will not penalize India for particular trade disagreements. Trump is talking about doubling the 10% tariff to 20%.
Despite the rough edges on some of her political views, especially on the abrogation of Article 370, on the issue of Kashmir, which she's been vocal about, and it's somewhat a non-negotiable as far as the Modi administration goes. Despite these rough edges, do you think it will be a smooth transition?
I do, and I do think that there are irritants. There are always irritants and disagreements between the U.S. and India. There were 25 years ago. There are today. And whether that is India disagrees with us on purchasing cheaper oil from Russia, or whether that is a different opinion that they have that we should have stayed in Afghanistan. Our people wanted to move out of Afghanistan after over 20 years. I know that we're trying to manage China's involvement in Afghanistan now. Both India and the United States are very concerned about China moving in there and displacing U.S. or Indian companies on mineral rights and other really important strategic issues. We're going to have our disagreements between the United States and India. India is in a different part of the world. They see the world differently, whether it's Iran, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's Bangladesh these days, where India has now had Sheikh Hasina come and live in India. We're going to manage these differences. We're going to talk through these differences. As two great democracies with a similar global view in so many areas, we can manage and talk about these irritants, but we have to talk about them before they become major problems. We have to manage those disagreements. And I think Mr. Modi, Mr. Jaishankar, Mr. Doval, our president, Jake Sullivan, our team, they've been able to do that and work through a lot of potential disagreements, but also deepen the strategic and geopolitical relationship significantly in the past 4 years.
Again in Wilmington, this time at Biden's high school, the leaders of the Quad, Prime Minister Modi, the US President Joe Biden, the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, and the outgoing Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida met. The Quad has evolved into a very important strategic relationship between the four countries who have a mutual interest, although they'll never state it explicitly, in containing and countering what many believe is an expansionist China. The emphasis on security in the Indo-Pacific, the situation in the East and South China Seas, and a rules-based order are all responses to what is widely considered as Chinese actions in the region. But does the Quad need to evolve further, develop more teeth, and what's the way forward?
Are we any closer to stymieing China with this formation? Or is it just, at the moment, P's and Q's being put in place and not too much action? How do you see this, Lisa Curtis?
Well, I think the Quad has really come into its own. Now, I do think this meeting will be one thing to watch for is whether they push forward with a maritime security initiative. I think this would be really important if we see something, the Coast Guard's cooperating or a joint patrol, a commitment to do joint patrols This would be really significant because it would show that the Quad is producing tangible security measures that are helping to push back against Chinese maritime aggression. We've seen this in the South China Sea against the Philippines. We've seen it in the East China Sea. So this would be something to watch for, a maritime security initiative.
I think in addition to showing, though, where we can cooperate as a counter to China, although Quad is not a defense organization, you know, there's certain defense-adjacent activities, such as the one that Lisa was describing. I think the idea behind the Quad, as behind a lot of our cooperation with India and other partners, is to show an alternative to China and the Chinese model. And I think you see that in the cooperation, for example, that the Quad now has on maritime domain awareness with the Pacific Island countries. So we're helping a different region that, you know, China's made huge overtures from, and I think the Quad can be very useful as a structure for partnerships such as that.
Prime Minister Modi would also hold bilaterals with his Japanese and Australian counterparts. The Prime Minister is in the hometown of the American President. The Quad Summit has also concluded, and so have the Prime Minister's bilateral meetings with his Australian counterpart Anthony Albanese and the Japanese Prime Minister Mr. Fumio Kishida. Now, of course, the attention turns to the Prime Minister's engagements in New York. What's also very important to highlight is that we're in election season here in the United States of America. The Indian diaspora, the Indian community in the United States is almost 4.5 million strong. It's emerged as a very important, influential constituency and a vote bank that neither the Republicans nor the Democrats can ignore. With the diplomatic engagements with Biden and the other Quad leaders concluded, it was time to leave for New York.